Chances are you don't have any experience ever hiring or managing other people, and that's okay. Having personally hired over 100 employees, I put together a simple 7-step system that you can immediately use to find applicants, filter your candidates, and make your first hires. The overall goal of the system is to maximize your chances of hiring the best possible candidate for the position. This is done through a series of filtering steps, where you will be interviewing for the candidate and determining if they are a good fit for the role through interviews, as well as assessments. One great thing about the system is that not only can you use it to hire CS agents, but you can also hire candidates for just about any position. In addition to this video, be sure to check the resources section for the accompanying checklist, which will include the steps in order, with a summary of the information I'm going to present now. That being said, let's jump right into the first step, creating your job post. In this quick tutorial, we're going to cover how to set up a Upwork posting to hire a customer service agent. So we'll head over to our Upwork profile, head over to Jobs, and click on Post a Job. That'll take us to the start page for posting a job, and we'll go ahead and click Create a new job post. Depending on the role that you're trying to fill, you can choose between short-term or part-term work or long-term work. Generally, for a customer service agent, you're going to choose the long-term work option, and most agents prefer clients that have this set up as an option. In this case, I'm going to click on reusing a job post so that we'll have all of these templates pre-filled that we can go over. So the first thing it's going to ask you is to enter the name of your job post. This is what candidates are going to see on the jobs posting board when they're looking for positions that match the filters that they typically search under for their skill set. I like to name it this. You guys can naturally name it whatever is appropriate as long as it's descriptive. We're going to select job category, customer service, and hit next. Now, in the description section, this is usually what's the most important to sort of filter your candidates from the top. And the main thing here is you're going to get a lot of candidates from all over the place, regardless of what you put in here. But when you put something professional with clear expectations, you tend to attract candidates who are a bit more serious and have a bit more experience. So we like to include that they're required to have the experience working with the software that we're familiar with, including Freshdesk, Shopify, AliExpress, and Google Sheets and Documents. You can include what time that you're hoping that they can log on to handle your customer service. If this is your first customer service agent, you can ask them to be available during standard US times or even on their own time zone if you're not having a lot of ticket volume. If you have tons of ticket volume, then you might be thinking about putting customer service agents in rotation, where one agent covers a certain time frame, logs off, and then the next agent logs in, so that your customer service is always answering tickets in the shortest amount of time possible. Next, we're going to have a description of the customer service agent job here and mentioning that they'll be working under management. So they come into the expectation that they'll have a manager. In this case, if it's your first agent, this manager could be you. So feel free to keep this sort of text or change it depending on what you feel like makes sense for where you are. Next, we're going to list all the essential duties and responsibilities of a customer service agent, which is pretty straightforward. And most people that you'll be hiring will have experience working in these sort of formats. The requirements I think are really important here are fluent or native ability in English, which really comes across in the way that they'll text you and the way that they'll text your customers. If you don't have a native speaker or if you don't have a fluent English speaker, your customers will be able to tell, and this tends to lose trust in your business. We want proven working experience. So when you screen, you do also want to keep this in mind and make sure that you pick candidates that have done customer service in the past, which saves you a lot of training. A few key points that you feel like lines up with your company values. In my case, I feel like having someone who's results driven, someone who cares about doing things on time, and being professional really add up to the kind of workplace that I like to create for my own company. Excellent communication skills, of course. And once again, we're listing this experience in the softwares that we usually work with. Some agents will come in with lacking experience in maybe one or more of these softwares, but then it's something we can train them on. We'll just hit next now. Generally, we'll choose an ongoing project, include a few screening questions that we want them to answer, and require them to put in a cover letter. In step 4 of the job posting under expertise, we're going to include the following customer service skills and deliverables. So we're pretty open-minded in what skills are required here and what options are required here. In general, we'll leave these blank because we don't want the search engine to filter out too many people. In the additional skills and expertise section, by adding more of these, we're actually showing up in more of the filters for the job posting. So we're going to include skills that are relevant to the customer service position. In this case, that'll be customer service, email handling, customer support, data entry, virtual assistant, internet research, and administrative support. Even though some of these may seem like they don't have a direct correlation with a customer service role, a lot of customer service agents also include these filters, and it'll pop up in more of the jobs that they're searching for. Feel free to also add these tags to your posting. We like to keep visibility to anyone, so anybody even off of Upwork can see it in public search engines. We'll leave it on more than one freelancer, so there's a little bit less urgency. In some cases, that actually helps people apply for the job because they don't feel like, there's only one spot and it's not even worth their time to try and compete for it. So we'll usually put 3 freelancers, even if we are only looking for 1 or 2. And then we'll hit next. For a customer service position, we'll always click pay by the hour. An entry-level position, we expect the project to last more than 6 months, and it'll take more than 30 hours per week. So depending on your customer service needs, you may need less than 30 hours per week, and you can go ahead and select a different option there. Now we have an overview of everything that we put into the job posting here. And with everything looking good, we can go ahead and click Post Job Now to get this live. After hitting Post Job, you'll typically see responses coming in from candidates within the first 30 minutes to an hour, and then ongoing for about 2 to 3 days before you start to see these proposals trickle off. In which case, if you're not finding the candidates that you want, feel free to repost the exact same job post, and then maybe someone new in that 1 to 3 day period will find your job and qualify for the kind of standards that you're setting for your company. Once your applications start coming in, oftentimes you'll find that many of the applicants aren't going to be a good fit for the role. This can be due to any number of reasons. Sometimes people don't read the entire job post and just hit apply. Other times, candidates might not be entirely honest about their qualifications. Ultimately, you need to account for this in your hiring process and eliminate these candidates as quickly as possible. In this step, we're going to do some very preliminary filtering of the candidates based on their answers to the questions we included in the listing, and more rigorous assessment and elimination will occur at later stages. When looking at the candidate submissions, there's a couple of things we look at. First, we check and see what region the candidate is from. Although this is a remote job, we need to have an idea of what time zone the candidate resides in, as this affects our team dynamics. Second, we can lower our labor costs by offering standard wages to remote workers where the average salary in that country is lower than US standards. Third, some countries tend to have more experienced and skilled workers in the BPO, business process outsourcing industry, and are usually more reliable pools for hiring talent from. We'll also take a look at see if our candidates have any prior experience with customer service, as well as skills and relevant knowledge. Prior experience suggests that they've had time to hone various skills like their professionalism, language, and potentially familiarity with customer service platforms. Even if they had experience with customer support for an entirely different industry, they'll still tend to be far more valuable than a completely green hire. Lastly, we'll go ahead and take a look at any existing Upwork or Fiverr reviews they might have. Any positive feedback here is huge. It'll paint a more accurate picture of the candidate from the perspective of a prior employer. If you notice that a candidate has negative feedback, be sure to look at what's going on there, as it's a pattern that's likely to repeat. In this quick tutorial, we're going to cover how to filter your candidates based on a few factors, including what region they're from, the experience they have, skills and knowledge that they have, and their reviews on platform, whether that's Upwork or Fiverr. So here we're starting off with the job post that we've put up for a customer service role. And we're going to go over to where the proposals are coming in from our potential candidates. The first thing we're going to do is cover an example of a candidate that we've shortlisted that we think is a good candidate for the position that we're trying to hire for. So first of all, we can see what country she's from here. And the Philippines is a good choice here because they have a lot of experience in business process outsourcing. There's a lot of talent for that kind of position, those kind of roles in the Philippines. And the time zones that we're looking for, this does match up with the kind of dynamic that we want on our team. The second thing we can take a look at is her job success score here. She has a 98% score, which is proof that the clients that she's worked with have all rated her pretty highly in the past and that she's completed everything that she's done to a pretty high degree of success. Additionally, she has a top-rated badge from Upwork itself, and this suggests that she's doing really well even in the recent past. So reviewing her experience, she specifically has knowledge in Shopify and understands dropshipping as a customer support specialist. She has experience using Shopify, dropshipping, working with softwares like AliExpress and Oberlo, including Dropified app, which is what we prefer to use, as well as a few different platforms for customer support and handling emails. So next we're going to take a look at her cover letter here and how she's responded. So she's available for the times that we want to hire for. She has 4 years of experience specifically in e-commerce, which is a big plus. And she responded positively to having experience with 3 platforms that we're searching for to make sure that the onboarding process is as simple as possible for a new candidate working for our company. The way that she's written her cover letter suggests that she has a strong command of the English language. She knows how to, once again, work with the correct softwares, has plenty of experience, and sort of has a positive attitude, which you do want to see from a customer support agent in particular, so that they're carrying on this attitude when they're dealing with customers for you. And onto the work history. In regards to their relevant work, she's done quite a few jobs with very high ratings. And you can see her typical hourly wages are also something that would be beneficial to us. Looking through the rest of the work history, positive feedbacks from clients, and high ratings across the board suggest, hey, that this person is a really good candidate for the role that we're trying to hire. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and make sure that she's thumbs up and shortlisted so that we can go through all the top candidates. All right, that's about it for this step. Let's move on to the next one, which is an HR interview. In this step, you're going to be conducting one-on-one interviews with your filtered candidates. The purpose of the interview is to determine whether or not they're a good fit for your company from the perspective of logistics as well as your company culture. It's a very brief and informal interview, giving you a very general sense of who the candidate is, outside of what you already gleaned from their resume. Now, despite the relatively informal and general nature of the interview, it's important to do this well. The last thing you want to do is find out in week 3 that your employee was just looking for a short-term job when you're looking for long-term staff. It's in the best interests of you and your candidate to be forthcoming about expectations and aspirations. When conducting these interviews, we'll typically use a voice chat platform like Skype or Facebook Messenger. This isn't necessary, but it's generally a good idea as you'll be able to get a better sense of who your candidate is. Now, when you're conducting your interview, you'll want to focus on a few key points. Prior experience related to the position. Employment stability, how long they keep a job or how often they choose to quit or resign. Number of Upwork jobs. Whether or not they have their own family and obligations around that. Talk a bit about themselves, like their hobbies, aspirations, etc. Now, all of these points are intended to reveal some information about your applicant. You'll notice that points 1 through 3 are more business-oriented, focusing on the history of your candidate. Although not always true, generally speaking, past performance and behavior is a good predictor for what you can expect in the future. As such, the answers of the candidate should indicate some prior experience in the field, good employment stability, as well as a notable amount of Upwork gigs completed with positive reviews. Now keep in mind you might not necessarily find someone with all 3 of these qualities present, in which you should note any shortcomings if you intend to go further down the interview process with them. Taking a look at questions 4 and 5, these focus more on personal background and qualities, with the goal of painting a more complete picture of your candidate. There aren't really any right answers here, just things to consider based on what your expectations are of a candidate. When looking at point 4, you want to think about how aspects of their personal life will potentially enhance or interfere with the productivity of your team. If you need somebody that'll work 7 days a week, a candidate with a family of their own may not be the greatest pick, as they'll probably need to spend a bit more time with their family. They'll also be not as flexible when it comes to time zone and how long they work. Looking at point 5, you'll want to think about the hobbies and interests of your existing employees and your candidate. If your team is made up of people that have vastly different personality traits and preferences than your candidate, they may not be able to connect as well with other teammates. All in all, the points we discussed should be enough to give you a general idea of how to proceed. If you're not feeling great about a candidate at this point, go ahead and just cut things off early. Otherwise, it's time to move on to the next step. If a candidate has passed the HR interview and seems like a good fit, logistics and culture-wise, you need to give them a technical assessment of their skills to determine whether or not they can actually do the work at our desired level of quality. Technical assessments are useful because they function as a mini trial. You can quickly weed out anyone who isn't capable of doing the job, which gives you more time to screen other qualified candidates. Now, when it comes to the particulars of the technical assessment, this will vary. Each role requires a different assessment process, so I won't get into the fine details for every single logistics process because that would be a course on its own. But to help you get started, let's quickly go over what this process might look in a customer support role. There are a few things you might wish to determine. Their ability to compose a well-written email, how professional they are when they're dealing with problem customers, their familiarity and skills when it comes to using the Shopify platform, etc. The bottom line here is to make sure that your candidates can do the work well and without mistakes or requiring micromanagement. When it comes to the actual format of the assessment, we typically like to hand the candidate a hypothetical case to solve. This could be a mock refund request, an angry customer complaint, a positive review, or more. Now, if you feel like you haven't gotten a good enough idea of their technical skills, you can repeat this step as many times as you like. One thing to note here, if you're using Upwork, you'll need to pay your candidate for the trial time regardless of if you decide to move forward with them or not. Once you're done, you should consider the performance of all your candidates and figure out who you want to move forward with. Using your best judgment here should be enough. It's usually apparent whether or not a candidate is technically savvy in the position that they're applying for, especially if the role in question is customer support. Look for candidates that approach the technical assessment in a way that's in alignment with the customer support methodology that we described earlier in this module. That being said, let's move on to step number 5. an interview with the department director. If a candidate makes it through the technical assessment, they'll receive another short interview from the department director. The goal here is to get a feel for the candidate and verify that they are in fact a good fit for that department. If you don't yet have directors for different departments in your company, you can go ahead and just conduct this follow-up interview yourself. Some questions that you might ask here include the following. What are your goals for the next 2 years? How about the next 10 years? Why do you want to work at this role in our company? What are your biggest dreams? What do you see yourself doing long term? What do you hope to gain from the position personally? We want to avoid people who see this job as a stepping stone, and we want people who recognize their role as an opportunity for personal growth and gain within our company. We want people who demonstrate clarity on their ambitions and goals, and we try to avoid people who are vague or unsure about what they want. What we're trying to do here is determine whether or not the goals and ambitions of a candidate are in alignment with the role that they're applying for in your business. Ideally, you want candidates whose short-term goals are going to be fulfilled in the role that they're applying for. If the role they're applying for also fulfills their long-term goal, that's great. But most likely, this won't be the case for your frontline staff, and you'll want to think about what other potential roles they could grow into in your business to help them get towards their end goal. By making sure that both types of goals will be fulfilled, there's an increased chance that your employee will stay with your company for longer, and that they'll be happier overall. Based on the answers, at this time you'll determine which candidates are most suitable for the role. If this is going to be your first time hiring for the customer support role, we recommend keeping it simple and considering just one hire. Once the step is completed and you've found that the answers provided are satisfactory, you can determine which candidate is going to be the most suitable for the role and proceed to step 6, which is training them. At this point, your chosen candidate will go through a training process which can last up to 2 weeks depending on the complexity of the role. During this period, you'll be doing your best to provide the candidate all of the tools they need to be successful, such as training on company values, best practice, as well as company quality standards and KPIs for the specific role. We're going to be covering hiring in depth in video 6.9, so don't worry about it too much for now. Let's just assume that the candidates have gone through the training period and passed with flying colors. At this point, it's time for the final step, hiring them. Before you formally hire the candidate, there will be one more interview with the director to verify once again that they're a good fit for the company. Again, if you don't have a director, then you'll be conducting this interview personally. But generally speaking, at this point, you should have a gauge on the capabilities of your candidate and know whether or not they're going to succeed. In this final interview, you'll want to focus on how the training process went. If the trainee is still struggling with some areas of the role, you'll want to discuss this with them and determine how you can help. Alternatively, if they're severely underperforming, you may consider them unfit for the role and look for someone else. In any case, if overall you're still feeling good about the candidate, we'll elect them for the position. Congrats, you've just made your hire. Alright guys, that's about it when it comes to the hiring process. Although it's somewhat time intensive, this process is how we find highly qualified talent right off the bat, while minimizing our resource expenditure on candidates who might not pan out. In the end, it's 100% worth it. The time you put in here will pay itself off tenfold later down the road. If at any point while you're hiring you need a quick refresher, check out the attached PDF file we included with a summary of each step and what to focus on. And as always, if you have any questions about any of the content, feel free to post it in the private Facebook group. Alright, I'll catch you guys in the next video.